I thought I'd talk about the gospel and why the Christian faith is actually the really the only true faith, and why it can only be the only true faith. Um, Everyone says religion. There's lots of religions in the world, and they all believe the same thing, but reality is they can't all be right. Even though a lot of the New Age movement and a lot of the different religions on the world are trying to unite the faiths together. The truth is, Christianity can't be united to any of the others um, because of fundamental reasons, which I'm going to discuss. Um, okay, let's just have a look at go back to Genesis and have a look at what happened in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. And God said they were in the garden, and they were given a decision, and the Father just basically said, um, eat from the tree, and that will bring death into your life, um, or live forever. And so they had the relationship, the walking with God in the garden, and they had that relationship, but they broke it for a decision to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So that was the first decision that mankind made: relationship versus knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and the the knowledge of good and evil is basically tells us what is good and what is evil, is the law, which comes out later on in the scriptures. So that was the garden, and that was what we call the um, seed theology of what was to happen in the future. It's only in part, only in seed form. Okay, then that's the Garden of Eden. If we move along to when Moses was given the law, the instructions God gave to Moses was, come and get my people and bring them to this mountain so they can worship me. Now that was the instructions. That was what God had said. It had nothing to do with, I'll give them laws and rules and anything. It was, come to the mountain to worship me. Set my people out, set them free. Bring them to this mountain so they can worship me. So Moses does that. They come to the mountain, and it says God starts talking to them, and everyone was terrified of all the thunder, the lightning, and the fire, and the booming voice. And it even says Moses was exceedingly trembling, so even he was scared and he was shaking. The people all say to Moses, don't let him talk to us anymore, but you go up the mountain and talk to him, and if he tells us to do anything, then we'll do it. So what they were given was opportunity where God could talk to them directly, and they had that relationship and that one-to-one relationship with him, or um, and they came to the mountain, and that's what the Father wanted. But the people all said, no, don't let him talk to us. You go up the mountain and whatever he tells us. So they were asking for basically laws again, rules. And it's the same parallel as what Adam and Eve did basically. They had a relationship already, but they were being asked to make a decision, and the children of Israel again did the same thing. They chose, give us the rules and we'll live by the rules. So God said, okay, I'll give them, basically, that's a good idea. We'll let them have what they've asked for. So he gave them the commandments. So the covenant of the law wasn't actually God's idea. It was the children of Israel. It was the people's idea to have the law. And it seems God's intention was to have a relationship with his people, not through laws and rules. I think if you look at the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, knowledge of good and evil is the law. So it's the same decision again and again being put forth in the Bible. Law versus relationship, or in this case, grace. Grace to overlook sins. So every religion has laws and rules, and every religion has this is what's good and what's evil. But Christianity has one big difference. They have God, the covenant maker, coming down to earth himself as the Son and deciding to fulfill all the laws and the rules that separated mankind so they could have relationship. And it wouldn't be something they could break, a rule that they could break. It had to be at God's end, where it can't be broken. So Jesus comes along and he dies on the cross, which happens to signify the law that Moses was given. The horizontal beam for the laws man to man, and the vertical beam for laws towards God. So the cross is a symbolic representation of the knowledge of good and evil, made from from wood, and with the two parts, laws to God and laws to man. Perfect symbol of the law. Anyway, Jesus dies on that, and his blood is shed on that for remission of sins, for forgiveness of sins, and to cover over sins. And he fulfills the law, or the requirements of our righteousness, and our what do we have to do to have relationship with God. He does all that on the basis to get back to the original plan. So man could walk with God. So man could be with God and hear God's voice. And that was done through the sacrifice of Christ. Everything else was basically just to teach mankind about what is good and evil. That man can't be ever good enough without God. That man, ultimately, God is good and man becomes evil. So we learn a lot about ourselves and learn a lot about the character of God, and then we learn about the love, the grace, and the forgiveness of God as well. But every other religion can take you to the point of what is good and bad, but none of them can take you to the actual whole purpose, and that is relationship with God. And that's what needs to happen, and that's why the cross was so necessary. Otherwise, religions will just say Jesus is a prophet, again telling us what's good and bad, but none of them religions can actually see the purpose that Christ came to restore man's relationship back to God, which means he had to actually take our place as a man to restore the relationship, since we broke it at the Garden of Eden and we broke it at Mount Sinai. So he had to do it himself. man was incapable of doing it. And that is why it is good news. It's good news because we haven't done it, he's done it for us. And we can rest in the work that he's done so that we can have a restored relationship with God.